Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports. It's our Saturday sports program, our weekend sports program, where we chat with the movers and shakers of sports, sportsmen, sportswomen, coaches, administrators, tuba guy, someone who has some direct or indirect involvement of sports. But on today's program, as indicated, we'll be speaking with a former president of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Mr. Lydon Lewis, and we'll be discussing the whole issue of the inclusion or non-inclusion of private primary schools in the Core Bank National Primary Schools Athletics Championships. That in particular. Obviously, we'll be discussing other things, but as you know, there have been lots of discussions, in and about from different quarters regarding the non-inclusion, in particular, of the private primary schools. And also joining me is my co-host, who is still digging out, I think, somewhere in Toronto. That's Rudy and Sylvan, and I know it has been tough for those folks in Toronto, in particular, or upstate New York, where they have been digging out after, a storm, a sort of unique storm, as they would say. But definitely our discussion today will center around the private primary schools national athletics championships. And I can tell you, on one hand, there are those who argue that private primary schools should be included in the championships, as they are also an important part of the education system in Grenada, and their students should not be excluded from such events. On the other hand, there are those who argue that the championships are specifically for public-private school, plus public primary schools, and that private schools should organize their own separate competition. That might be a bit harsh. Well, we'll hear from Mr. Lydon Lewis, who is the former president of the Grenada Union of Teachers, by the way, who organizes the National Athletics Championship. By the way, I'm coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona. Mr. Lydon Lewis is somewhere in the big parish St. Andrew, and Rudian is in snow-covered Toronto. Let me welcome Mr. Lydon Lewis. Lydon, good afternoon to you, and I think Rudian is somewhere on the side there. Lydon, good afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon to you, Michael, and thank you for having me. It's an honor and also a pleasure to sit with you today to discuss such a topical issue. I think there are a lot of misconceptions and misinformation, and I hope that through this program today we can clear all of them up, and there would be a greater understanding as to what happens with the Core Bank Primary School Athletics Championship.
Okay, then. Rudian, good afternoon, and I hope you're warm, right?
Yes, it's a pleasure. Good afternoon, Mr. Lewis. It's a pleasure to have you on with us. I am warm, snowed in, snowed out, snow cover, however you want to call it. I have never seen snow like this. We have mountains. And for those listeners, we are selling snow. If you want some, we are selling. We have quite a bit. It's a discount. So if you wish for some. But I am looking forward to the topic. Being here in Toronto, I have some views based on the private sector, because I'm also involved in it, especially in sports as well. So, I'm looking forward to a good topic based on that.
All right. So, Mr. Lewis, first off, primary school sports, particularly the athletics championship, organized by the Grenada Union of Teachers. Give us a synopsis about the organization of primary schools athletics, because we have to make the differentiation, because there's a private primary school, but primary schools in general athletics championship.
Thank you, Mike. Let me start by saying it has been about 65 years or more that the GUT has been involved in organizing the primary school athletics championship. from way back when, and that you would understand that was long before my time. But from since my involvement with athletics championship from the St. Andrews branch and then on the national, we've had the GUT being the main contributor, sponsor, providing all the human resource, all the technical parts of the organization of the sports, of the athletic championship so that it can happen. A few years back, about 20, more than 25 years ago, because I think St. Andrews this year is boasting that they'll make it 23 and 25. So it means 25 years of sponsorship from Core Bank at that level. Prior to that, what I remember is that Milo did the sponsorship, and we felt it was very inadequate to take care of all the expenses. What we don't understand is that athletic championship is not done on the day. There's a lot that happens long before the culmination on that day of sporting activity. So it's not just on the day. So since the inception since I know the union, the GUT, has been an integral part of the organizing and the promotion of these events. The sponsorships that we have had over the years were partial sponsorship in terms of mainly financial contributions. Now, when we had, what happens is that each parish would organize their own athletics championship. So all the primary schools in that parish would vie for a position to represent the school on the national, at the branch level. So, for example, in St. Andrews, you have 13 primary schools. They would all hold their sports meets before the parish games, and then they would have a day for heats or trials where the best 8 athletes would be selected to participate on the day of the sports. And you would have the field events that were done prior to the day, and these points would be added. And also included is that the road race and sometimes you have a road relay. And so at the end of the championship, it would be a culmination of the track events, the field events, road race, and sometimes road relay. And all of these takes place, and then the parish would then select the best athlete for the track event for the National Primary School Games, and they would select the 2 best athletes for the throws or field events that would take place the day before the track event. So there are a number of events that takes place before the actual games at the National Stadium, where each parish is represented. I think that's how, in a nutshell, the program is organized. And since the start of the season, the GUT, through its membership, through its own funds, through union dues, would put whatever financial resources, and then the bank, Grenada Co-operative Bank, comes in on the day of the various parish events. And I'm happy to report that they finally have been sponsoring, or they have finally agreed to include all the 7 parishes as sponsor for the events, and then of course the national event.
Oh, okay. Right. So I think I get the gist of it now. That Core Bank, apart from being the sponsor of the national championship, they also sponsor it at the parish level as well, including Karakou and Pidimad weeks. And
Yes.
we are now heading towards, because from what I would have seen, is that they would have concluded sports, the parish sports,
Yes.
and we know,
Yesterday, yeah, well,
yeah,
so the culmination of, I think, all of the parish sports with Karakou and St. David's holding their events. Yes.
right. So we now heading towards the national championships now.
The
Right,
national championships.
right. That's good. The Core Bank National Athletics Championship. Now, so let's try to dig into the whole issue of the private primary schools. Um, where it is that the private primary schools were either included at some stage or excluded.
Well, I want to put something in perspective. It is not about exclusion. It is about membership. The games are for members of the Grenada Union of Teachers, and they are represented via parishes. You will be included once you fall under the umbrella of the GUT. So there is no exclusion. If you want to come in, then you can by becoming members of the GUT. What we may discuss further is can they be included without being members of the GUT? And that's a discussion that I'm prepared to have, because let me say from the outset, I believe in fair play. I believe that every child should be given an opportunity to represent to showcase their talent at the highest level nationally. So I want to put it out there, because remember, I was the president when the decision was made, as controversial as it was, to invite them to have the 8th lane at the sports. Because remember, we have 7 parishes, Michael. So there are 8 lanes at the stadium. So we agreed that we were going to give them that place to showcase their talent in the 8th lane. Now that would that decision created a fast storm, and eventually it was stopped. However, we have several private primary schools that represent the parish, especially in St. George. So it is not about exclusion. The private primary schools that are not part of the national games are those who are not members of the GUT. So I think it is important to make that point. So we included them that year, and we gave them the 8th lane. They were participants, but not competitors. In other words, they could not have won the sports or accumulated points, but they were allowed to participate. And if they placed within the first 3 of an event, they were given the medal. But the school placing 4th would have been brought up to get the 3rd points place, just as an example, because they were not competitors, but they were participants. Now, I choose to make that differentiation because you couldn't have a situation where the private primary school came or the champions of the parish sports, because they're not a parish. So the question is, how do we include them? They're not a branch, they're not a parish. It's not a primary school games in terms of schools being represented. The schools were already selected by the various parishes, the athletes from the various schools. So how do we include them? And so that year, it was just a show in discussion with the bank. We did some work with Roger Duncan from Co-op Bank. He has always, we have always discussed the event, how we can grow the event, what are some of the possibilities. Kester Elcock at that time was a member of the sports committee, and I was happy to work with him because he had a close relationship with the private primary schools, and so it happened. Not without resistance, and sometimes we need to understand where the resistance is coming from, because these are paying members of the union, those who represent their parish, and now we're going to give another entity a bly, as we say in local parlance, to enter the games and showcase themselves without having any obligation towards the union, who is the main organizers of the event.
Okay. Let me say good afternoon to some of our friends who are joining us, including your good friend Eugene Leckrich. Eugene, good afternoon to you. Eugene in Brooklyn, New York. Hi, Chenny. Chenny Joseph. Michael Lambert in New York. Zane McFarlane over in Jamaica. Roger, good afternoon to you and welcome to the program. We just mentioned Roger Duncan. Sean Goody. Yes, he's telling Rudian that he can keep that snow. We are nice and sunny in Spice Isle. Okay, but Lydon, but the question may be, is it fair to be a members only organization to participate in something like sports, where we are talking about sports for all? Is it fair to those athletes that they should be punished because their school is not a member of the Grenada Union of Teachers?
Well, the word punish sounds a little harsh. I think it's just an issue of where they are at the moment. The thing is, Michael, is that they have an opportunity to join the union. The only obligation is that they pay a fee. However, many of the private primary schools that are not members of the GUT and not getting that sort of opportunity, they do not want to be members of the union. Blatant. You sometimes teachers come to you and say, well, look, we would like to join the union, but there's a process. And management just feel that it's a private business, rightfully so. It's for profit. Most of the schools are for profit or and providing the service. And they might just see, most of them, from my experience, see the union as meddlesome and trouble for them. And the union would come and probably strike or sign collective agreement that where they can't pay and things like that. So to say that they've been punished is not fair to the union or fair to the discussion, because you have an opportunity to be members of the GUT. Now, that said, as I said prior, I believe that they should be included. But how do we, the question needs to be asked, how do we include them? So is there room for us to now say, okay, the athletic season is here upon us. Let's write to the private primary school, or the private primary school write to the union and say, we would like to be included at the, let's say, St. Mark's level. There is a private school there. So we're willing to pay an affiliation fee or a registration fee that will help offset the cost. Because, I mean, Mike, whether you, take for example, now that all the primary school events are over at a parish level, you would have something like 2 weeks preparation before the national event, or a week based on the football. I think they had to bring it forward by a week. All the athletes would have to be trained. They have to be transported to the venue. They have to be fed. There is medical expenses. I know at one time I had to be calling Miss Ventu. May she her soul rest in peace, and say, Miss Ventu, I'm sending 2 athletes to you. Give them what they want, and then I'll pay later as president of St. Andrew's branch. These medical supplies have to be paid for. Transportation, the breakfast on the morning of the athletes, the uniform, the spikes. We don't get support from anybody out there in the diaspora for national primary school sports. All of these bills are borne by the GUT. So how do we now take these expenses? Because now you have private primary school, they don't pay union dues, they're there literally for free, but you have members of the union who are paying members. They raise funds. I think St. David's branch had a bingo last night after sports to raise funds to offset these costs going into the national primary school game. So we have to be balanced. We have to understand where the teachers are coming from that say no, and how they reason things out. So the conversation should be, how best can we get inclusiveness, but also show fairness to the others who are actually paying. And this is where the discussion has to go. Because I'll tell you what, Mike, from Monday, when the athletes take to Progress Park, remember athletes are coming from, and I'm using St. Andrews because I'm familiar with that, from Tivoli, from Munich, from, there are probably athletes from Munich that has to go back to Mama Can or wherever, after they train with the parish team. The parish usually give them $2 a day to help with transportation costs. Sometimes the schools give them. And then you have the management staff who says, look, we need something to drink during the day, so we have to worry about all of these costs. Now, I hope you understand the context in which a teacher may be staunchly opposed to the private primary school. And bearing in mind that the private primary school is a business entity that is making monies, and you have GUT members paying their union dues to finance these members. I hope this adds some clarity.
Well, yes, to an extent. Rudy and you will come in a while, but there's also the argument that could be that, hey, you have, let's use, for example, teachers who are, may not be paying union dues, but if the union, strikes a pay increase with the government, they're entitled to the pay increase as well. I don't think there's any exclusion in terms of that. That could be another argument.
Well, let me correct you there. The union is a one-stop shop. In other words, once you join the teaching fraternity, you
Mhm.
automatically become a member of the union. Whether you choose to take the advantage or whether you choose to strike or sit down in a corner while
Well,
teachers
I should
marching
say,
God's son,
the strike action I should talk about.
you have to pay. And when salaries are docked, your salaries will be docked as well.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
Before you come on, Rudian, good afternoon, Sherman. That's Michael Sherman, your good pal. He says, let's take a bigger picture for qualifications and participation. If a country is not an affiliate member of FIFA and World Athletics, can they compete in their sanctioned meets or competition? Chenny is asking, the question is, why do they have to join the union for participation in sports? And he further asks, is there an opportunity for non-paying or honorary members of the GUT? And how about securing sponsorship for each parish to offset those costs that Lydon is speaking about? Should the parish team be sponsored for all expenses? Will the private primary schools receive with open arms? Rudian, I'm so you have been listening for a while.
Yes, most definitely. And I, Mr. Lewis, I am on your side, and I agree with the union. If you're not a part of
But
it, you
but you could
cannot.
be
No,
Rudian. Rudian, you
there is, Michael.
Rudian. No, no,
There
I'm
is.
just saying.
Yeah,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
saying that you said you're on his side. Supposing his side is the wrong side. Go
No,
ahead.
it's not. His side is not the wrong side. Um,
I just teasing
yeah,
you.
I know, but there is something called rules and laws, and if it's there, we cannot offset it to fit someone else. That's the rule. It's the same thing here in Canada. The private public school, the private elementary school are not taking part in sports with the Catholic and the public school board in Toronto, but the high schools are because they are part of it. Yes, it is the same thing you're saying. They're under the umbrella of the Ontario Athletics Association for high school, which is OFSA. So they are part of it. So if they're not part, and they're a private school that is not part of it, and they cannot take part. Now, we are not going international. This is way under amateur, and there is rules, and this is your law. As the duty in sports, you guys are setting the laws, but this is what it is, and you cannot feel bad because another school do not want to get involved. That is the law. The only change I can see that you guys can do is say it is a primary school sports and not parish. So if you become primary school, that means every primary school could be involved. That's the only way I can see. Oh, I see the fairness will come in with the private school, elementary school, private school taking part, because now it become all elementary schools, so everyone is on their own. Now, when it comes to under the umbrella, like you said, it become parish. Then, unfortunately, they cannot be part of it, and that's just my take on that.
Okay, so before you come to Rudian, Niashatul Kings Douglas is saying, I agree with Mr. Lewis. If the sports are put on by the GUT and those are the rules, then those are the rules.
So the rules.
Sherman is saying the narrative has to change if the stakeholders come together and restructure the championship. Ministry of Education, Ministry of Sports, National
Yep.
Lottery.
Mhm.
And Best Babs, why doesn't the private primary schools encourage the entity to join the union? So Mr. Lewis, so I mean, you have been there for a while. So too have been Michael Sherman. You know, and specifically as it relates to the National Primary School Championship. How much you would say have been done to encourage the private primary schools to be part of the the union in one aspect, and to ensure that their concerns regarding their athletes participating can be addressed, because there's also the argument that a number of the um, well, at the time, top athletes, and I just say top because there were a couple of athletes who came through the fold of the private primary schools. I can use Sean Lambert as an example, who became a national champion, came through the private primary schools. So, how much has been done by way of the union to encourage the private primary schools to be part of the union setup?
Well, let me say good afternoon to Mr. Michael Sherman. That's my real buddy. We've worked together in parish sports for years. I mean, Mr. Sherman is a workhorse. He's a real stalwart of the relationship between the GUT and Core Bank. Remember, the sponsorship by Core Bank started with St. Andrew's branch only, and then went to St. Patrick's in Carriacou, and then nationally then Carriacou. So it has, the relationship started there, and I had the opportunity to understudy or work with Mr. Sherman. And so when he left, there was not a big gap in terms of the relationship and what should be done. Michael, let me reverse the question to you. After the private primary schools were showcased at that meet, and I must confess that the parents came out, they supported the event, and they got a taste of what it can be like. The question to you is, why then didn't they try to say, okay, let's cement that spot, get our athletes showcase, join the union, represent at the branch level, and get our athletes there, who can, especially those athletes. And I believe there were one or two that came through with shining colors from private primary school, especially when they enter secondary school. And like my brother from Toronto was saying, the sports is unlike the secondary school sports. Intercollege is a secondary school sport. So our secondary school, they have an opportunity to register athletes. And once they're under the umbrella of the of GAPS, then they can participate, which is unlike the primary school sports. So I felt that we opened the door to them, and they did very little to keep that door open and build on that opportunity that was provided to them. And so when I left office, even now the discussion is being held. How can we accommodate? I spoke to a member of the national executive who said that was a serious consideration this year. And I think at one point there was an agreement to include them. But then the question is how? They're not a parish. It's not a school games. How best can we include them? And that's where the breakdown usually comes. So the union is there. Members, let me tell you, let me go so far because I know that to be a fact. The schools who are members of the union from the private schools, they run sometimes into a little financial difficulty, and they would write to the union and say, hey, we can't pay our union dues for a month or two. However, when things pick up, we'll pay the backlog, and they're afforded. So it's not only about, oh, they can't pay union dues. As I said, I believe that they just don't want to be involved, and they have some advocates who choose social media to speak about the issue and hope that something is done. But I mean, you cannot just accommodate them without them finding a proper place in the sport. So whereas nothing much may not have been done directly, but they got their foot in, they should have, they're still in a position for even next year to say, well, it had happened before, our athletes are showcased. Let's see how we could work with the GUT, the organizers, and get it done.
Okay.
Michael, if I can add one thing before you go. And we like the sports, and when it started, we saying, some people saying, how is it fair for the students? Well, the students is not in charge. How about we reach out and say, why isn't the schools getting involved? Why isn't those in the power get involved? It's not the students. Yeah, we want every student and every child to take part, but it's not, we don't have the control. The students don't have the control. You have those in power in the schools who are in charge of that. So those are the people we have to look and go after. You cannot say the GUT is being unfair to the student. They have nothing to do with the student. You have to do with those in power that can make those changes. So we have to change the conversation and try to get them to go in there, because yes, we want every child to get involved, every single child to get involved. And the same way how St. Patrick's REC, which is where I went to school, the same way they had their school sports, then they had their parish. The exact same way those private schools can do the same thing too and be a part of the parish. They could do the exact same way, but they have to. There is, like I said, it is part of it. You cannot be a part of something and not and say, well, it's unfair for me to do this because I'm not up. No, we can go all the way back to seeing a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, a lot of different companies, a lot of different businesses. If you're not a part of it, you cannot get benefit from it. It's as simple as it is. No matter how much money you may want to put or invest in it, or if you're not a part of it, you just cannot be involved in it. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Chenny is asking, and do you, Lydon, as a former member of the GUT, a former executive member, president rather, is there a chance for re-engagement? Do you think there's a chance for re-engagement?
Well, certainly, and the person I spoke from national executive said that, boy, we missed the chance. I think he wouldn't mind if I tell him that we had him went at it head to head, calendar. Calendar went at it and he says, well, I support you in LL. We need to get this thing. We need to get all the other. So there is an opportunity for re-engagement. But Mike, the private primary schools are having their games. They have more sponsors than the GUT. Have they invited at least one school in St. George to make at least a guest appearance or in the sports? You see, sometimes persons want you to open your exclusive right to embrace them, but they don't open their exclusive right to embrace anybody else. How is the private primary school showing goodwill so that in their sports something, invite the GUT? We have never been invited, not even as the president of the union to say, well, come have a look at our sport. Never. I don't know it. And if it has been done, then I would apologize. But the 7-8 years I spent as president, never. Not a word. They go ahead, they have their sports, they run the show. I listen to the ad. They have about 6 or 7 sponsors. We have one. Because that's private. They are the ones who control the business sector. They are the ones where the students go to school in this school because of the affluence. They have not even extended an olive branch or an invitation to the GUT to say, well, come sit with us, send some athletes for a relay. I am sure that St. George's branch would be happy to give their athletes a run in a relay to get them warm up for the national primary school game. But I don't think that conversation is happening. So while the GUT, I think is and I can't speak on behalf of the GUT, but I've been around the table long enough to know that while they want inclusion, they want their rules to be respected, and they want persons to become members of the union. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So some comments, as one will say that, remember, it's the Grenada Union of Teachers primary schools sports meet, and Davis Adams, who, by the way, is a principal of a primary school, saying on a broad picture, it is best for all students to have exposure to competition, but this is a rules-based institution running an activity, So there needs to be a broader engagement and conversation to see how we can include others. And one more, Michael Sherman says, many years ago, the GUT participated in CUT under 15 games, and non-affiliate private schools athletes participated. Example, Dr. Sean Lambert was part of this team. And it's a nice segue to bring in the whole issue of the CUT, something we discussed because it's the GUT and through the National Primary Schools Athletics Championship have been participating over the years in the CUT, even though there were some years of non-participation. But it was unique that the athletes from the primary schools were given that opportunity to participate among their peers in the region. And we know a prime example is that of Kirani James, for example.
Certainly, and I'll tell you what, Grenada was absent from the game, so about don't do, if my memory, probably about 15 years. And the problem was not that we didn't have athletes. The problem was funding. When you look at the budget and what it took to get our athletes to the games, the union just couldn't afford it. At a conference, we argued this thing for hours up on end as to, and members said, no, we're not going to take $50,000 of our union, our members' funds to send children to the CUT games. So I remember when we returned to the CUT games, I think it was 2016. Or before that, 2011 was when we returned, or 2000, boy, I'm trying to remember, I can't remember. But that was the year Kirani made his breakthrough at the CUT games.
So probably 2007, 2008, around this period.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. The then President Marvin Handel said to me, and I was the advocate, and he said, okay, well, you chair the committee. And here's what, you raise the funds. And whatever you raise, we'll match it, and then we'll send our athletes. That year, we put in our Herculean effort, and we were able to send our entire team to St. Lucia, and we did very well. But Michael, when we did the final figure, it was in the region of probably about $60,000 to get our athletes to and from the games. And then you're talking about unplanned expenses like medical, having doctors. When we got there, the conditions were not right. Moving to another location or to a better facility, we were not fortunate enough to stay at hotels. So Kirani and others slept in a school in Viewfort, and that's where the championship took place. Even now, we've decided when I was there that we'll try as best as possible to always participate in the games, even if with a token representation. But when the games went to Bermuda, come on, Mike, you know how much it would cost us to get to Bermuda? With every child having to get visas and go through Miami, and it will cost us. We tried, and in the end, we just couldn't make it. But we've been to mostly all of the. We went to the BVI, and Grenada did well. I must say that the Grenadians in the BVI, when they heard that we were coming, they pour in and they bought the kids drinks and food, and they waved the flags, and we did well. But Mike, these are monies that are coming from the union dues, and members are saying no. So the question is, how can the Ministry of Sports, how can the Co-operative Grenada and other entities all pull together, as Michael Sherman was saying, and get the athletes the correct exposure that they need, starting with the national primary school games?
Well, and I guess as much it will come back to the conversation of, is it fair for the private primary schools to have a free reign in the championships? So,
is it quick question? Is the primary school, the private primary school, are they under the umbrella of the ministry under the government education system?
That's the Ministry of Education.
The Ministry of Education?
Yeah, well,
are they separate, or are they a part of it?
Some of these schools just crop up. They start the school, they open it.
But they must have accreditation from the ministry to operate from the ministry.
I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't put my neck on the block to say that. I know there was a move to register all of the schools so that there is some form of uniformity or some sort of reach from the Ministry of Education. But I'm not sure that is happening. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I don't think there is any illegal entity operating in Grenada in terms of schools. I would assume all the schools are accredited by the Ministry of Education. Well, private schools in particular.
I would ask that question. I'll have to get back to you because I'm not sure.
I asked this question.
But as a former union president, would you be concerned that if there's something that being operating schools that are not accredited by the Ministry of Education?
Yes, we have raised concern, but there is nothing we can do. Remember, we represent our members, and we do not have that reach. Our relationship with the ministry is really at that level. It depends on who the Minister for Education is and how he or she sees the relationship with the union. That will determine our discussion. There are times when the relationship is not very cordial, so the union stays away from the ministry and only engage them when we have issues. And there are times when we have a good Minister of Education who is willing to sit with us and we have monthly meetings where we discuss everything. So it depends on administration, it depends on who is sitting in the chair, and it depends on what the discussion area is. I prefer to deal with while I was president, I prefer to deal with the issues that affect my members, and that's what it was. Take for example, I don't know if you remember, there was this big discussion as to whether or not private schools are entitled to the free books program. I don't know if that was a hot topic here, and sometimes we so that we forget very quickly. I don't know if you remember, and the discussion was whether or not they're entitled to it. Are they part of the public service? Should public posts fund private schools with free books? There was the same discussion with the issuing of the tablet to the children, and I'm not sure that they got. I don't think they got for the free school book program. So how far the reach of the ministry is with the schools, I don't know.
Mhm.
So here's another question. How is the Ministry of Education involved? I'm talking about the office. I'm not talking about the schools, the office involved with sports in Grenada for elementary school.
No, not really. We have some assistance from the Ministry of Sports when it comes to the other sporting discipline, and that too needs some improvement. So there are sports officers that may go in and deal with probably cricket, and you see more involvement there from the Ministry of Sports. The Ministry of Education at one time started having PE teachers in all primary schools. And then when administration changed, they felt that they didn't have the resources, uh, and they put these PE teachers in class as regular classroom teachers, and in some cases, just didn't renew their contracts. How many schools have PE teachers right now? I'm not sure.
I mean, this conversation could go really deep, because you are saying now that the Ministry of Education, who is responsible for every child that is in Grenada, who is under the umbrella. We're not excluding the private school, but we don't know if they are part of them or not. But we believe they have to have some sort of license to have thing. Is not involved in sporting activity in Grenada. That's troubling.
But
Because
remember, no,
yeah,
Meridian, even though we have the Ministry of Education, we also have the Ministry of Sports, right? And in some in some government setup, you may have a different ministry. Okay, so you may have just the Ministry of Education with a separate minister, whatever, and the Ministry of Sports separate. Some will have Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, Culture. So
yeah,
sometimes it comes under the say,
under the same umbrella. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But they may just have a particular line minister that is responsible specifically for sport. In this case, we have Honorable Ron Redhead, who deals specifically with sports, and then we have Senator Andrew, who deals specifically with education. But the line ministry is education, youth, sports, and culture. Um, but you mentioned something there, Louis, and I think Rudian was getting on to it, the whole issue of the physical education teachers in the schools, and I think primary schools in particular. And I wanted to spend a little time on that because it's a concern you raised in a previous discussion regarding the lack of physical education teachers and trained physical education teachers in our schools in Grenada.
Yeah, and if we are to grow, first we have to recognize that sports and athletics is no longer just fun and games. It's a career. It's business. It's money. It's taking care of your family. I've never seen any motorcade for somebody returning to Grenada with a doctorate. But you go out there and you represent Grenada well in whatever field, and you get all the accolades and you get the motorcade and you know what happens. So it's not just about fun and games anymore. And I believe that it was a good move, an excellent move to put PE teachers, and not those only who knows about athletics, or it wasn't athletics coaches. It was for all-around development. So these persons were supposed to help with basketball, cricket, football, track and field, whatever it is. And the fact that the program has been discontinued, the way it was established to impact the various schools, I think there has to be a return with that discussion between Ministry of Sports, the Ministry of Education, and the union, as to how we can best re-engage these PE teachers or PE teachers so that they play an important role. In the last government budget, there was a cut, there was an increase in taxes on sugar. And the explanation was that, look, we're developing into an unhealthy community. One of the places that we can at least make an effort to combat this is from the primary school level. If we say that we have childhood obesity, then more students, more of our children needs to be playing whatever physical activity that is set up. And we may not need to put tax on sugar if we have a strong PE program. I'm just saying. So it is where the government is prepared to put its focus, and where do we see ourselves. We have to treat our young athletes, or young cricketers, or young footballers, netballers, basketballers, and let them know that there is a career that they can actually earn a living for themselves and their family, and make national and create national pride in themselves and the country if they take these events seriously, and get away from trying to make everybody at the primary and secondary school into academics. And that's something I feel very strongly about.
So, are you saying that there isn't any physical education activity, physical education activity, yes, is the correct term, in the school system in Grenada as it is now?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying no. But what I'm saying is that I do not know the extent to which the program was maintained after the teachers, in some cases, were not re-employed or were placed in classroom as
When
regular
that was
teachers.
when that system was discontinued,
As with everything else in Grenada, you can't put a time to it today. It just slowly faded out. It just seems as though it's just not happening anymore. And then when you ask a question, you say, well, these teachers were moved to where, and these teachers were placed in the classroom because a teacher left and there was no budget. And it's always about the budget, the line item that deals with finance. So who pays the piper college?
but we do have trained physical education teachers in Grenada, right?
Yes. And mind you, every year we turn out students who do very well in CXC at physical education. And they must display, I think, 3 skills based on the exam that they're proficient in. So it's not for a lack of having persons there that are qualified. We see how many programs just do in terms of football. Let me give you an example. I trying to remember the gentleman's name. When we did the regularization of teachers, making them permanent, there were a couple of teachers in secondary school. I remember this gentleman at GBSS. I mean, I don't know if I do remember his name. Probably his name might come to me. This guy sent me some certificates, and I'm like, what? The guy did level 1, level 2, level 3. What you call the athlete? NAAC, whatever. Level
IWF,
1, level 2.
IAAF.
IAAF, level 1, level 2, level 3 in football, level 1, level 2, level 3 in basketball. The guy was just, I mean, I had a stack of papers in front of me, but the guy didn't have A levels. So the question is now, the Education Act says that he needs to have 2 A levels or an associate degree. But here is a gentleman who is super qualified in terms of the disciplines that he does at the school. And we know how to go to the ministry and put forward a case as to why they should make him permanent and keep him on staff and get the technical people to equate his qualification in the area of in these areas so that he could run sort of current with the A-level qualification that he needs to have to teach at the secondary school. I'm just showing you that sometimes there is a void or there is, if I should say, there all the parties do not come together as to what is needed and how we can get what is needed. And even at the time when persons choose to upgrade themselves, they come in conflict with what the rules say is the normal qualification for this person. I think fortunately we're able to get all or almost all the PE teachers in secondary schools placed on the permanent staff, but it took an effort. It took a serious effort. And on my laughing area, that I think I mentioned that to you, is that they told these PE teachers, look, you have to go to school with regular school clothes, and then when you're ready to take it, then you have to go and change it to PE clothes and things. I say, well, look, if that's my job, why can't I come dressed? But that's another discussion. So we have people there who are super qualified. And all we need to do is draw up a program as to what we need as a country and allow the resources, the human resources, to go in the direction of where we want and how we want to develop our skills.
Okay. I may have to ask you for a few extra minutes because I know Rudian will have something to discuss, and there are some comments, and I have a question or two to throw at you after. Um, Kelvin Hector, that's Coco Shot, is saying, Mike, all schools having this bring and buy. Why they can't do the same for sports or dress down day and ask them to pay things like that? They can help. Another suggestion, okay? And maybe schools who have athletes going can raise funds to assist with cost, or union can ask all schools to raise funds and make a donation to attend the games. And I think it has to do with the CUT games that you were referring to.
Oh, Mike, these are same teachers, the same resources. So whether you read it at the school or you read it at a union level, teachers would say it's the same union. But I take the suggestion. Yeah.
Okay.
And they have done that. They have done that. Yeah.
I just realized we have a lot of comments there that I need to get through. Mike Sherman is saying, I haven't had the opportunity to scrutinize the national sports policy, but is there any discussion around sports at primary level? Well, off the bat, I can say yes, there is. I can't go into much details in terms now, but based on scrutinizing it, I saw an effort has been made to, resuscitate a lot of the sports at the primary school level, introduction of sports at the primary school level, and different sports, not just track and field. David Adams, if this issue is to make headway for equality and equity for all students to have the opportunity to participate, our Ministry of Education will have to lead this charge, but including all stakeholders. What is important is that the GUT, being the organizer of national primary schools primary school sports. Chenny is saying there seems to be a coldness and resistance existing regarding institutions that are not under direct government control and GUT membership. As the phrase "a child is a child" disappeared, should parents whose desire is to send their child to a private institution be considered different? Well, if they make it so, Chenny. Roger Duncan is saying, here's my personal opinion. The private primary schools can participate in the parish games once entry requirements are met. Then the parish team will select the best among the public and private schools to participate at the national games. This matter can only be settled at the parish games. Okay. Well said, Mr. Former President. My involvement in sports at the primary level always negotiate to have quality PE teachers, but it's not done. Um, nice choice of words. One requirement is you must be a GUT member. This is the issue. Um, Woof, what? All-round development. However, a lot of the teachers do not all, well, not all of them involved in sports. And when I just joined the teaching service persons, example, they said Vida, Bruno Victor, Joe Alexander went to Australia for training. That was a start, but never continued. And Roger, given that most private schools are in St. George's, I'm sure the St. George's Parish Games will be massive as the national games. And you indicated that there are some schools, like I think First Choice is one I think that can off my head, that is a private primary school but participate in the games, right? In the so there are exceptions, right? Um, Mr. Lewis, a strong PE program doesn't mean the kids want to be part of it. Lots of kids prefer to stay away from it all. Kids know sports have money, but kids also see the bias in sports in Grenada, and that deters a lot of them in certain schools. Let me take all the comments and then we'll comment after. The IWF trained coaches that are teachers took it on their own to build their competencies. And Christine Smith, hi Christine, how are you? Oh, good friend Christine. I humbly submit that this is the GUT Parish Games and not the National Primary School Games. But it carries national in it, Christine. So we must ensure that we maintain the GUT as part of it, sponsored by Co-op Bank, as well. And does that mean I can now come and fill the void by organizing the National Primary School Games? Jenny, you can't be the only smartest man on earth. Yeah, Lydon, yes. So going forward, how do you think we can resolve this issue once and for all? And I'm just throwing something in. Do you think we have reached a stage where now, even though it is organized by the Grenada Union of Teachers, that the and the focus is on athletics, what's about the involvement of other sporting activities? So whether it's football, cricket, you know, and probably a committee of the GUT organized by like something like the template, as they say, of the secondary schools, but organizing sports at the primary school level and not just athletics.
Yes, I think there is need for that. A bigger community involving all stakeholders, the GUT, Ministry of Sports, Ministry of Education. Michael, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, we started the parish councils, organized by a previous NDC government. In fact, I was the president of St. Andrew's Sports Council for about 5 years. And that went defunct when administration changed. And we were able to organize sports, not at the primary level, at the school level, but throughout the parish. We were able to resuscitate basketball. We had the return of the Eastern Games, among others. And what you're saying is correct. If we have a functioning parish council for sports, they can be included. You have the PTA. There is probably a coaching association, and of course there is a parent body, or the IWF body in Grenada. If all of these parties come together with representatives for football, cricket, and discuss how best we can move sports in general for, I think there is need for that. It cannot be a one-party system or one main party system. There has to be complete involvement. A council, whether you call it a council of sports or a council of management or whatever, that would give direction to sporting activities. And these would be competent people who understand the various disciplines. I think more can be done at the primary level for cricket, for football, for swimming, for the athletics isn't too bad. I must give GUT and the schools kudos for keeping the athletics alive through the structure. But there is more that can be done for netball, and sometimes we see things being done, sporadic here, a little cluster there, and then that disappears based on who is there and the interests they have. That has to be a sustained effort nationally to get as many persons involved or who wants the exposure as possible. For example, I heard a discussion this morning before I joined your program with some guys and were lamenting the fact that how is it that St. Andrews was able to select the under 19 parish cricket team that is happening now? What about the youngster who may be out of school under 19 and is a very good player? How is he involved? Because usually what happens is that from the parish competition or the secondary school competition, players are selected there because there is no under 19 parish competition that includes anybody from, let's say, from outside of the school system.
Yeah,
So
like a club
like a club.
championship. Yeah.
So there has to be that conversation. And the only way that conversation will take place, Mike, is based on what you've just said or the question you've asked me. We need to have bodies specifically designed for the development of our sporting discipline. And nobody should see they having any ownership of any sporting discipline as much as they have done. And they must be willing to be all inclusive and all encompassing, not just for but for the students and our people, our young people to excel. And I take it that you wanted to get my position, and there is need for that. If the new sports policy covers that, then kudos to them. If it does not, then they need to go back to the drawing board.
Um, Alan Duncan deceased, Victor Joseph also deceased, and Abel Patrick were trained in physical education in Australia. Chenny says the conversation must be, well, basically capsule in what you just said there, must be led by government of the day who engages national associations, relevant ministries, duty and other stakeholders, including corporations, without a collective conversation, understanding the goals and objectives of the people in charge, we will be having this same discussion in the next decade. And
Amen.
before,
Amen, Chenny.
yes, before,
That's exactly the point.
before you go on, Rudian, Lydon, during your tenure as president of the GUT, it can be described at times as any union boss, very controversial, threats of strikes, etc. I know you're smiling now because you're probably bringing back memories. But how and bear in mind that we going into probably the first full year of intercall, let's use intercall as one, without threat of strike, teachers' action, and COVID. Um, Reflecting on the union's position a few years ago. Well, I'm saying a few years ago because of recent. Then, yeah. Do you think that the action was justified? And I'm saying reflecting on it now, do you think the action was justified?
Well, I stand by the decisions we made at that time, and I would say that it was justified. However, I must hasten to add that in any difficult situation, there needs to be a conversation. War is not won on the battlefield. War is won, or peace is negotiated not on the battlefield, but around the table. And at no time was duty objecting to or object to negotiations or how best we can do. We, in fact, advanced several positions during the time as to how we can get back to a sense of normalcy. The other party held their ground. We had no other choice. Fast forward to now, what I see from the various sports meets, I mean, the numbers have the numbers have been staggering in terms of turnout. The excitement, I mean, it kind of leaves me wondering. Probably, you know, could have happened before, but then the union had to hold its position. But at no point during my tenure, when we took that action of walk to rule, we were opposed to meeting at the table. It was the other party that played hardball. We had our terms and conditions as to what would get us back, and they said no, no, no. And I don't think that after a couple months of us trying to reach out and have that meeting took place with any resolution in sight. So we had to stick to our guns at the time. I love sports, being active at all levels with the administration of sports. Although predominantly cricket, but as a teacher in athletics, I think that we as teachers and as we were hoping that the other party may have relent earlier and that we could have been to where we are now. But we're here. Water on that bridge is gone. Mike, we have something really good to build on. And I think that going forward, we can keep in mind the lessons of the past and not let it happen again, because at the end of the day, a lot of athletes and other sports children were not given the opportunity to showcase their talent. And I don't think that any teacher was happy because of that. I think teachers were unhappy that the decision had to be made. We made it knowing that we wanted a specific outcome. The other party was not interested in discussing the outcome, so we had to keep at it.
Did you made lots of friends, or you were hated the most?
Well, let's just say that when you in this position, you can't really look at it like that, I think I've learned lessons. I think if you're a leader and you're not willing to learn and go back to the drawing board, then I think it has made me a better person, stronger, wiser. I put up on my status the other day, I'm at my SOS level, slower, older, and smarter. And I think that's what the trenches do to you. So,
yeah. So it was let's say a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Sherman say, hope this conversation continues at the end of track and field season. The duty national executive now hope they are listening. Take all the great ideas for future national primary school sports. And the Lydon Lewis, a national treasure, a very progressive gentleman. Great to have seen him on today, Michael. When you play hardball, the bouncer is a surprise ball in the mind of the fast bowlers. Lydon will understand that, obviously, for cricket. And my last statement before the program ends, Jenny, who tell you the program is ending? Mr. Lewis, willing to lead the conversation for a national consensus on the way forward? Or, Keen, I'm willing to also support to realize it. Mr. Former President, you did the best. Okay, Rudian, quite a bit.
It is, and it was certainly a good program. I still feel disappointed in the way sports is in Grenada. I compete in elementary school, high school, and I figure we should be moving forward, and we seem like we're stagnant. We're not going anywhere. When it looks like we're moving forward, we cannot moving backwards. I made statements many times. There are so many different islands or countries who we was ahead of them, and they're ahead of us now. And it shouldn't be, because if we're moving forward, we should continue moving forward. I know many people don't like that statement. We shouldn't worry about other countries, but we was ahead of a lot of countries. But they are doing better than us,
But it depends on how you gauge in the ahead.
Like I said, we know how Grenada was. We knew who we was as Grenadian. We knew what we had, and we never we take it for granted. In cricket, in football, in track and field, in netball, we was we were standout in the Caribbean, and we're no longer there. Yes, in track and field we have individuals who go there and perform, but in the other sports we're no longer there. and that's the change, because we don't have the people working together, and that's what it should be, the people in power. The Ministry of Education and the GUT, when it comes to sports, um, should have a conversation. They should have a conversation. You guys should work together. No
Mhm.
doubt about it, because
And
the Ministry of Education is responsible for the children of
and
this
and
of
and,
every
and,
school.
and Rudy, and
Yeah,
just to add to, and I want to add what you're saying there, because
yeah,
not just should have a conversation, but should always have in conversation.
yeah,
It should be continuous,
yeah.
not just the week before the sports,
No,
a sports meet. It
yeah.
should be a continuous conversation on how we can improve, how yeah,
Yeah,
I
I mean, and
fully,
it should be
yeah,
something that, like, after every, I don't know how you guys do it or how you did in the past. After the year, you go back, you sit down, you have a meeting 2 weeks afterwards, and said, what can we do better? What mistake that we
mhm,
made? What can we do? And it should have the conversation, because in the end, yes, we are sitting here and we listen to people who it's about the students, it's not. It is not about the student. If it was about the student, we would think about them.
but it is about them, eh? It
I
is
know, but
about
I'm saying
their
it. You know,
development.
I'm saying,
Yeah, it
a
is.
lot of
It
time
is a
they say it's about the students, but in reality, we don't see them having a conversation to help build the students,
yeah.
and
That's
that's
true.
something that we really need to do, and not only on the elementary school level, on the high school level, and on the national level. So it's not in one place, and there is always ways. Look at we talk about a lot of budget coming on you guys, a lot of funding falling on you guys. Um, Within the parish itself, before the parish sports, they could have invitational relay meet with the parishes in the parish with the schools, and it's a way of fundraising to, of course, the funding to go to the parish sports. So there's a lot of little things that can happen. So we got to, look back at the things. How can we find fundraising? We don't have to wait till sports time, because before you know it, we bam, 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 and we're right there. We got to start. Either we starting early in the year. We start early in January when they come back. We could have invitational relay meets, and the schools bring all the stuff, and all those little things, or how the schools,
Mhm.
because, like I said, those we always say that there is the school sports that they have in their school, there's the parish sports, and then the national games, and that's
And
it
that's
for
it.
them,
That's it.
and it's
Yeah,
done.
and which is
And it's
that
completely.
that
And for being
that's a
elementary school
concern.
kids,
Mhm.
without being a part of a club, and then how many clubs there is in Grenada,
Mhm.
the St. David's Blazers, they have little kids. They have no meets. They're done. The season, their track career is done for the season. And the
Yeah,
same thing goes for high school. We have
yeah,
to change that. The conversation up, and I understand the timing, and we cannot extend it because we're looking at character games and all those things in them. So everything have to come in play. But it has to be a certain way. Certain things
yeah.
have to get done.
See,
It's not fair
yeah,
to them in a sense, but yeah,
and sometimes they bring in the talk about the you know students preparing for CSEC and external exams and thing, and I'm saying here it is that every weekend we have the same situation in Jamaica, for example, where
exact
students are
same
preparing,
situation.
and
Yeah,
every weekend, there's a sports meet. Sometimes midweek, there's a
yeah,
sports meet, and it's the same students. In fact, they have more schools,
yeah.
and more schools than Grenada. So it means that Grenada is more manageable in Grenada. But every week there is a sports meet, and sometimes two, because there may be one in the stadium and one
Yeah.
in Montego Bay,
And they run on
and
grass. They run
and
on
in
grass the
some
same way
cases,
most of our kids run on
well,
grass
yeah,
before they get to the national stadium.
apart from the stadium, they run
All
on
right,
grass.
so
But it's part of the development
yeah,
aspect of it, and it's not everything done by the association, because you have the Jamaica 3As, and it's not all the sports meet that is run by the Jamaica Athletics Association. So even if the Grenada Athletics Association is doing their development meets, there's still opportunities for others to be involved, organizing, getting our athletes, not just the national championship, not just
yeah.
the parish championship, but other meets to get them ready.
And one more thing just before I go. And we talk about the having the PE teachers. I know of a particular school who have people coming in there because they either play sports before, and we talk about the education part of it. And if they want to go as far as an education part, that PE teacher should also know some sort of health, also teach the kids about some sort of health aspect about it. It's not only on the sport, but it's also on the health aspect about it.
Yeah.
Eating properly, sleeping,
Well,
the
well,
health
by the
aspect
way,
about it, right?
yeah, we
So
have
it has to
more.
go deeper than just
yeah, most of the
kicking ball
train,
and bouncing ball, you know? Yeah.
and that's what the point Lydon was making. Most of the trained PE teachers are well rounded. They have
Yeah.
been trained in nutrition and all these
Yeah.
other things. Lydon, there's one bouncer before you go. The Ministry of Labor is in search of a labor commissioner. LL is my nominee from your good friend Lincoln Toro Deputy. I know Toro is waiting to hit a box at you. And he's making a nice suggestion. You're muted. You're muted. Just unmute yourself there.
I'm ducking that one. Tell,
Okay.
tell Toro when we see we go take that one over a drink. Um, let me just say, Mike, to you, the CUT games should never be a GUT games, and here's why I say that. This is national pride. These are athletes going out there to do national duties, however, whatever part the GUT plays. So I'm not saying take away GUT. GUT should give it up, but I'm saying that the country, our people, our government, our Ministry of Sports and our Ministry of Education should play a more integral part in ensuring that our students are best representative of our country. Take, for example, when we go to the city game, tickets, accommodation, uniforms, and we have to beg the local athletics association for jerseys for I have a jersey that was given to go in Bermuda, and then and not to Bermuda but to BVI Scholar and I, and when you look at it, it was a little Puma sign and a little Grenada sign on one of the sleeves, and then Grenada is marked in the same color as the color of the jersey, so it's not highlighted in any way. I'm making this point to say that look, when these athletes perform well at the primary school games, the country should embrace them and say, you know, our ambassadors to go out there. And corporate Grenada, along with the ministry, should not leave that responsibility up to the duty alone to take these athletes out there. We shouldn't be having to write 50 letters and getting the only response around a handful. I remember years we asked Lotto for assistance and we get $0, 0 cents from Lotto to take our team from to CUT games. And the excuse was the same. It's like they only saw duty. They never see the athletes. Duty is just the front runner to give these athletes exposure. And it's a harsh reality, but it's the truth. Um, and so I guess I've not heard about the CUT games this year, but most definitely the CUT games would return next year. How would we treat these athletes that are selected at the national level? Bearing in mind that Kirani James first, and I heard him speak about it more than once, that his opportunity came through the CUT games, and were able to provide that sort of opportunity, and other athletes came through the CUT games representing the GUT. It should not be representing GUT. It should be representing Grenada, whether it's through or via the GUT. And so the the point is taken in context to what the comrade has just said, the brother has just said, that we have to stop looking at it as just a duty function, but look at all who are the key players and how we can extend resources to get our athletes there. And we do raise funds. We do give students donation lists, and we do have events where we can, at schools, where we can help our students. But Mike, do you know that some of the students can't even find a board paper? We have to go in the post office, get the board paper, get we have to pay for the PTA, then fill up the form, then get the passport, buy underwear, socks, just to get some of these athletes. I remember, let me give you that last one before I left. When we went to send kids to the CUT games, I remember this little girl from Subiz. Everybody was buying ice cream, and I said, "You not buying ice cream? Sammy, I like ice cream. Who like ice cream? Ice cream making people fat." So I look at her and I saw, that wasn't the excuse. So I took her hand. I walk out. I said, "Come with me." I said, "What happened?" I said, "You have money?" She said, "No." I took out some monies and I gave it to her. I mean, the parents just didn't have more to give her a little extra spending money. And the union may have given her a little $50 or something. But that's spend, like kids. So you see what our students are exposed to, even within their own peers. And we have to stop it. We really need to look beyond duty and look at our national treasures, which are our athletes and our future stars.
Mhm. Yeah. The let me get this. Yeah, correct, Rudy, and that's a comment to Rudian. The ministry and the union have to be on the same page to achieve the objective of an improved sports program. In this age, every school should have a trained physical education teacher. And Toro is saying at the end of the conversation, we can conclude that sports development comes down to two things: organized structure from local, parish, and ministry levels, and money, lots of money. The money raised from bake sales and selling chubby and conkers is only good enough to pay the bus to take the children to the airport. And Davis is saying, my last intervention is that the Ministry of Education be the convener of all relevant stakeholders starting now and not leave it for next year again. Include private schools, GUT, sponsors of sports, Ministry of Sports, concerned citizens, Chenny Joseph, Lydon Lewis, to name a few. I'm willing to be part of the discussion. And it's something we have been speaking about on the program is that we need to have this national conversation. Yes, we're talking about the sports policy, etc., addressing, but we need to have this national conversation, and it's what I think Davis Adams has pointed to. That will and the national conversation involving the various stakeholders, including the sponsors, etc., that can really look at the development of sports and the way forward, and the development not just at the secondary school level, because we have been hearing concerns from some of the secondary schools that there are students that coming into secondary schools, for example, and do not know anything about sports. They're basically learning the fundamentals of sports in Form 1 at the secondary school level, and it goes back to the point you're making, Lyden, in terms of the physical education, the lack thereof of physical education teachers and a lack of physical education structure in some of the schools, and I think the conversation is needed. Finally, from you, Lydon, and bearing in mind what was just said by both Lincoln, Toro Deputy, and David Adams in terms of having that national conversation on the way forward.
I support that view. I'm all for it. Once it's in the development of sports and our national development, I'm willing to be part of it. Um, we need to get it going. We need to do better. We need to place our youth in front and center, and it would help in the all-around development of our country. Less youth on the street, less tendency for violence, whatever, and we can take this step forward. I have never opposed to serving at any level, and that would be the case going forward. So once, and even if it's just to bring a bottle of water, I wouldn't object. It's not sometimes not what you do or how much you do, but the fact that what is needed at the time. So I say this to say I completely agree with the sentiments, and we need to have that discussion. Mike, let me just say on the same point, it's all good and nice of a policy, fancy words on a nice fancy document. But it's what happens, it's taking the policy and transitioning it into actual work and actual results and getting it out there. Two different things, huh? So, and probably those who develop this sports policy may not be those that transition into implementation. But it's a good start. But we need to take the policy from where it is and transition it into action and into getting our athletes forward and our sports people forward.
Okay then. So let's have a wrap there. And Rudian, I know Rudian and Toro and others in Toronto. I assume Lydon, maybe LL. I'm certain you have some sunshine to lend them. I'm here in Phoenix,
I,
and
I, I'm sweating. I'm sweating.
okay.
Yeah.
Even though
And not cold sweat.
all right. The irony is that even though it's sunny here in Phoenix, and we call it the desert, the valley, okay, but it's a bit on the cool side. It has been on the cool side for the past few days in the 40s and 50s. Very cool. But when it really comes to summer, it's in the 90s and the hundreds and things like that. So, but I'm certain that you folks in Toronto will be, surely welcome some heat. I would say not just the sunshine, but some heat.
No, most definitely. The sun is fully out now. It's really bright outside, but it's just the snow on the ground, and there's nothing you can do about that. Um,
Mhm.
and they say spring is in 2 weeks. Like the time is changing back in about not a week and a half or so. Yeah, and this is what it looks like now. So yeah, it's what it is. Listen, they
Yeah.
know that when you're out here, they said it's winter. If winter don't have cold, it's not winter. So
Mhm.
it's just how it is. But
Yeah.
but it was a very good conversation today. Mr. Lewis,
Mhm.
a pleasure speaking with you. And like I said, we all have concern for not only sports in Grenada, but just for the young generation coming up, so that they have better than what we have. And sometimes we sit back and we say, man, I seem like I had better than them, when they should have better than what we have right now, and they should be
Mhm.
farther than what we ever had. But it's a work in progress. Seem like it's working so hard. It's like it's a long process, but we hope to get there, and we really hope that we can do what we can do for the young generation of today.
All right. And Lydon, finally from you.
Well, just to say thanks, Mike, for involving me. I don't know what I did to merit such a illustrious discussion, but among two illustrious gentlemen. But thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. And I think if we could all fall on the same page, we would go forward. And I think what is important is that we all have national pride, national development, and or nationalism is at play, and that's what we want to see. And by whatever means necessary, we have to get it done and showcase our Grenadian people at the highest level.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much. And thank you to all those who have been throwing in their
Definitely.
comments. Toro, we're inviting some Grenadians to come to Canada where they can learn to ski and join the National Hockey League and make big money and invest some in sports in Grenada. Toro, hockey.
I
Uh,
agree. I
Toro,
agree.
and like Toro is becoming a anti-West Indies, um, you know, critic.
No, no, the man has to blossom where he's planted. And that's all that is happening there.
All right.
He's
So
in
he's more,
snow. That's where
yeah.
he
So
is.
he's more in hockey that is cricket.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Lydon. It has been a pleasure. I appreciate you being with us, and certainly it was a very intriguing discussion. And I want to thank you for being on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, then, folks, that's Lydon Lewis live from St. Andrew in Grenada. And thank you to all those who contributed to the program. Toro and Davis Adams, Jenny Joseph, and, Sherman, Michael Sherman. Thank you very much for being part of the program. Roger Duncan as well. And Roger is part of the sponsors. World Bank, yes, Michael Sherman has been involved with the National Executive. Best Babs and all those who contributed to the program. I want to thank you for making, as they say, giving your 2 cents. Um, so that's it for now. Next week's God willing, I think we may be doing some Caribbean netball. I'm not. I have to confirm, but definitely on the 25th We're going back to intercall. It's the weekend before intercall, so we'll be looking at a lot of the technical aspects of intercall, the concerns you may have, all of that. I know there were concerns about the point systems and all these other things. We're looking to discuss and the logistics regarding intercall, the streaming, the broadcasting, all these things will be covered on that program before intercall. So you have the invitation to join us on that weekend. And I think I'm still to confirm whether or not next week we'll be talking some netball. There's a Caribbean youth netball tournament coming up, and we may be talking to some of the regional folks. If there's any way you can continue supporting sports, especially our young sportsmen and sportswomen, please do in any form, whether it's by participation, meaning attendance as a spectator, whether by making a contribution, please do. They need your support. And I'm saying that in light too, that there are a number of track and field athletes now at the college level who are performing well. In the next few hours, I'll be trying to post some information about our athletes, especially at the junior college level. They'll be doing, very good. And we want to encourage them because they are the people that you will be supporting in the next few years, okay? Certainly the Kirani James and others at some point in time will be phasing out, and they're the next set of stars, as we say, that will be coming in. Not just track and field, but we have our footballers, we have our cricketers, we have our volleyball players, we have our table tennis players, we have to see where we can continue to give them the support. If there's any activities, sporting activities in particular taking place in your communities, please do continue to support as well. And it's a good time too for those who are involved in organizing at the community level in particular. Listen, our 50th anniversary is coming up 2024. This is a good time. This is the best time to start having that conversation of what you can do at the community level. Sometimes people get carried away about, organizing the national events and organizing the big events and, this, that, and the other. But how do you get to that level? You have to start at the community level. And I think our focus, and I'm trying to encourage our sponsors and the ministry to put a little more effort, more emphasis in organizing sports at the grassroots level. 3, 4, 5 years from now, we will be having the fruits of our labor, of our investment. We can't be trying to organize the big events when we do not have, people to participate in the big events. Therefore, we'll be only supporting the people who are already there. The big stars from outside. We have to get our local people to that stage. So 3, 4 years, 5 years from now, we may be able to have a crop, of talented sportsmen, sportswomen who will be able to compete against their regional and international counterparts. That's where we have to put the effort. Organizing sports at the community level, the village level. One final note before I leave. Today they will be paying tribute later on this afternoon at Art St. George Park in Victoria to the late Andrew Brother Monroe. Andrew died a few weeks ago, and he'll be laid to rest this weekend. I think it's on Monday he'll be laid to rest, if I'm not mistaken. But there's tribute being paid to him at the Alston George Park in Victoria, where he played most of his football, represented Hurricane in particular. And if you can support that as well, please do. He gave most of his life to football, the development of football, playing football for Hurricanes, playing football for the national team, and also coaching at the national level. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much once again, live from Phoenix, Arizona. I want to wish you a pleasant weekend, and until I see you sometime, probably next Saturday, God's willing, I want to encourage you to do have a pleasant weekend.